Historimius. Aoirioke teniko faste bombi.
A while back I talked about EYE Divine Cybermancy. To say that game was a drug trip was putting it lightly, but it was a cool one, where you only get scared sometimes. I also mentioned that the studio had made a Warhammer 40k game, but I didn't say too much on it. With good reason too, because somehow the game was even more jank city than I. They realized this too, and the base game has now been replaced with an enhanced edition. It runs way better now, and it looks sharper too, but just how enhanced is it really? Well, we'll see. Just keep in mind that this isn't going to be EYE 2 or anything, so don't get too excited. Okay, there are weird similarities, but let's start. What is a Space Hulk anyway? Well, in the real world, it's a tactical board game that came out in 1989. It got 2 more editions after that, but I won't get into it. Mostly because they don't have like a Viking feast table to fit it on, but the lore is very simple, so this won't take long. You know how sci-fi settings have FTL travel and different ship goes fast ways? Well, in 40k, the human ships tunnel shortcuts. Through hell. These ships are old, and sometimes the anti-Satan field stops working. They can be lost for hundreds, sometimes thousands of years. On occasion, they collide with other ships, or the warp spits them out in the same spot, and they become giant hellish dust bunnies. This is our Space Hulk, a giant ball of spaceship stuff that just happens to show up every once in a while. It could have lost technology, relics, who knows what's inside. But it has been in hell, so probably demons or aliens have laid eggs in it. It's usually going to be Tyranids, they're hard to get rid of. So when one does pop up, the Space Marines do too, and the fattest, biggest armor they have that can actually fit in a hallway. It keeps them slow, clumsy, and vulnerable to ambush. So off you go to find some stuff. If there is stuff. Okay, what does the actual intro say?
Command of the assault belongs to an epistolary of the librarian, a deadly battle psyker of the chapter. Leading a specially assembled squad, the librarian will investigate abnormal augur returns and psychic emanations from within the Space Hulk.
Yeah, it's a find stuff mission. But then they twist it a bit.
Premonitions. The ether gifts me visions. I see a threat far more deadly than gene-hungry Tyranids. A scream and a dark promise. A ship in the shadow. A relic from our secret past. I feel the tightness in my gut as I see a cataclysm as yet unseen. The Umbra Mortalis descends upon us. The shadow of death.
Alright, there could be more to it. But first, let's start with the visuals. Space Hulk is already technically impressive, but it's being backed up by some fantastic art direction. The stupid scale of 40k is all here, but there's also a sharp attention to minor detail. Because they are massive ships, but they still give you that sense of being lived in. For example, you could find a guardsman armory with some of their equipment still there, or something like a study room in a library, or even a small officer's room. Which isn't crazy by itself, but then you get to these massive rooms, and it's like, oh, the level of detail hasn't dropped at all. I've seen big cities and outdoor areas in games, but nothing like this. At the time of this video, Darktide isn't out yet, but I don't know. This is by far the best looking 40k game I've played. The environments have a good amount of variety too, because yeah, you do have Spaceship Church and it looks awesome, but a Space Hulk is a bunch of different ships. So it's not all cathedrals and World of Warcraft login screens. For example, a Mechanicus ship is way more angular and looks like it was built for efficiency. You still have the religious icons on occasion, but it's definitely different. The Rogue Trader ship is even more extreme. No focus on worship, just exotic cargo and effects of the I do what I want contract. So more Age of Discovery rather than more space temples. Each of these maps are huge too, so there's a lot to see. I have played other games where Gothic architecture merges into sci-fi elements, but none do it as good as this. You can walk from a castle dungeon into a reactor and it's seamless. The levels aren't jarring or seem stitched together. They also remember that humanity isn't really the hero of this setting, but creepy. Quake 4 body horror creepy. Which is great. Some 40k games gloss over how bizarre humanity is. In this game, they put that front and center. All the creatures, the equipment and weapons, they all look fantastic. It's a visual feast, so I don't see any problems here. But the audio is a different story. How about the music? Yeah, this is the music. Now, this is atmospheric, but there's not that many environmental sounds in the mix. Most of the soundtrack is just background noises and an occasional, like, string sting, but nothing else. You can get away with that, like Arx Fatalis did, but that was incredible ambience work, and Space Hulk isn't up to that level. It also makes moments that could be exciting dull. Here's a part where a ship is exploding and you have to escape in time. There's no music and it's like effects are missing. How about the campaign's last stand? This is the final battle for victory. It's so empty. Not even a generic dun 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 dun. There's nothing. I thought this might be a bug to the point where I looked up other people's gameplay on YouTube, and no, it's just like this. The sound quality is ever bad, but it's lacking in variety and impact. Space Marine Terminators are hefty boys, but so much sounds underwhelming. Base those steps up, add some reverb to it. Weapons are a similar toss-up. The assault cannon is,
They are coming!
It's not terrible, but the game itself shows how much better things could be. That's much more like it. So here's how all of this is a huge problem. This is a game where you gun down hordes of enemies. People compare it to Left 4 Dead or Payday or Vermintide. First of all, it is a lot different, but I don't want to get ahead of myself just yet. But all of these games do something very important that Space Hulk doesn't. They use sound and music to make the chaos more manageable. Deathwing is a lot like those games when it comes to the horde combat. You know, managing crowd control, keeping an ideal range, targeting specials, all that good stuff. Space Hulk has several special enemies, but in the thick of combat, it's rare I can pick one out by listening. As a quick comparison, take ambient machinery compared to a boss spawning. Even in just the sounds of the level, that's hard to pick out. Now imagine you're fighting a dozen screaming gene stealers when it happens. The only enemy I can reliably pick out are the exploding enemies, which are new to the Enhanced Edition. They have a weird warbling sound that makes them easy to pick out. That's still only one. In the campaign, squad mates will sometimes call it enemies, but it's not reliable. If you play co-op, you won't get that at all because you can't tag enemies. The horde attack suffers a similar problem, because the other horde games might have boss themes, but they also have it for when an attack is coming. Here, you don't get any of that. You might hear them, but they don't make a lot of noise on approach, so you'll usually look at your radar, but that's breaking down all the time. As I said before, it's old equipment, so sometimes it randomly stops working. Even when it is working, I don't get much info out of this. Motion doesn't always mean a Tyranid, and I don't know what the numbers are, so oh well. I'm going to compare the sound design. Might as well use Vermintide too, since it's another Warhammer game. Just listen to the difference.
Assassin up ahead!
Yeah, this is perfect!
That Packmaster will trouble us no more! More cages! No! Then we're done!
Till we...
It takes away a lot of energy and excitement that the combat could have. Now, Vermintide isn't perfect or anything, I mean, but audio alone is miles better. Also, it bugs out sometimes. There's more to say on the combat, but I want to step back to the campaign for now. I had to restart the game for this one. The game has a typical training level to get you all caught up on the basics. This usually isn't worth mentioning. You adjust your settings, rebind your keys, except this time I realized I couldn't rebind the melee key from Q. This was the first sign something was going to be very strange about the melee, so consider that some more foreshadowing about the combat. The first map is a huge interconnected sprawl. Every map will be like this, and knowing how your local area is laid out will be the key to success. You play as a psychic librarian and can equip yourself before the mission, but you don't have much to play with just yet. With you are 2 squad mates you can also re-equip. There's not much more here yet, but that might not matter for one squad mate since you won't ever want to re-equip him for reasons we'll get into. The first mission doesn't have combat for a while. It lets you soak in the atmosphere and get a handle on things. For one, you can command your squad using a radial menu. It does its purpose, but it's not ideal. There aren't that many commands for it anyway, so you should just memorize the hotkeys. This will save a lot of clunkiness and panic clicking in the future. The other important element is hacking. You only do it with doors and turrets and don't need to play a JRPG this time. For turrets, you just open up the map, and if one's near enough, you can hack it automatically. This won't pause the game, so you are vulnerable. There are a few kinds of turrets, and some are much more useful than others. However, they all have to be controlled manually, to the point where if you activate a dormant turret, it starts shooting at you. So you need to quickly hack it a second time. I tried to be careful, but I'd still own zone myself from time to time. It is useful for scouting ahead and clearing out a waiting ambush, but it's not a thick of combat kind of skill. Unlike door hacking. No map needed for this one, you just use the interact key on a door. You could find a locked door that makes a good shortcut, but maybe it was locked for a reason. Now this sounds mundane because, it's opening or closing a door, but the swarm is relentless and controlling the flow of enemies can win a battle before it begins. Setting up your lines of fire and not getting surrounded is essential. So sealing doors prevents that, but it also cuts off your escape, so be careful. There's a little more to this because additionally some doors are busted and can't be hacked anymore. After a while of playing, you get a good sense of which doors should be locked down, but a permanently sealed door needs the Emperor's guest key, which means there's no sealing up that hall anymore. You need to assess the risks of where they spawn from, and then seal those doors. That's the plan for every map, really. Jesus Christ, there are a lot of doors. It's methodical and tactical and not fun to engage with because I'm closing a door. It's accurate to the tabletop and it's fun to ollie out of a situation by breaking a door down, but you have ancient and wondrous ships and the only way you interact with them meaningfully is through hacking doors and turrets. If you could set other traps or mess with machinery to your advantage on top of that, it could be a cool element. On its own, it seems underdeveloped for an FPS, and there's a reason for that. As far as actual mission objectives go, there's nothing special. Find place to shoot thing, defend point for a while. There's nothing stand out in a good way as far as those go. Whether you're playing campaign or multiplayer, there's some collectible relics to find. In the campaign, these will help increase your score, which will give you more skill points for you and your squad to play with. In multiplayer and special missions, they give your character more XP to level up faster. I'll touch on both those progression mechanics in a bit. For now, I can say it's still underwhelming. I didn't feel too inspired to march across the map looking for everything, but I went back and found them all and there wasn't anything special. For now, though, I want to talk about the finer points of combat. Starting off with good news, I'm pleased to announce that Fuller Auto has returned. You don't get the ability in campaign, but I still want to use it on the Vengeance. Here we go! It's bugged and doesn't work. I can't use Fuller Auto on it? No, that can't be right. Not after this year. It has to. It doesn't. When it comes to weapon choice, Space Hulk has a good variety. There's a healthy amount of ranged weapons like the Flamer, the Plasma Gun, the Shotgun, and the Stormbolter, among others. From there you can mix and match them with several melee weapons, or go full melee. In the campaign, as a Psyker you have access to powerful magic. You have an opportunity to unlock even more powers, and that's absolutely worth it. Some are locked to the campaign because they're so absurdly powerful. Outside of the campaign, you can instead switch between classes. Each has special abilities to use instead of librarian magic. So when it comes to having options, it's good. There's a lot to mix and match and try out. Ranged combat keeps you playing a lot more tactically. You need to set up a good line of fire and be aware of the map positioning. The bugs will eat you alive up close. Staying as far as possible to slap them from range is the ideal. If ranged combat has an issue, it's that there is some lack of feedback, which will start to show itself more and more in harder difficulties. Sometimes enemies will stagger or fall back, but usually one of two things will happen instead. One is that they explode into a red mist and die, which that's good. The other is that blood flies out of them while their animation continues as normal. The blood is a ridiculous amount, so ironically, I don't know how much I'm damaging them. Sometimes they stop in their tracks, but the animation jitters and freaks out. They go back to what looks like an idle standing animation, then fall over and die. It's somehow being stiff and weightless at the same time. Ranged weapons can feel more like they're stun locking the enemy rather than impacting them in a meaningful way. It's hard to put into words. It feels more like I'm tasing enemies. They occasionally go, ah, and stop, but then keep running. It's not horrible, but it gets noticeable because you're doing this over and over again. What is horrible is going full melee. I was going to say that it's decent with a few enemies, but it's not a game that only has a few enemies, but it's not even that. If they die instantly, you might think that, but beyond that, it falls apart. See, there's a block move, but there's no canceling a swing, not even a little bit. For example, the Lightning Claws. Here, I am mashing the block button after taking a swing. It's bound to mouse too, so I'm clicking fast. That's your response time up against this. You swing like a drunk bear and it's unbelievably clunky. Just to make it worse, you can't use a class skill or power while swinging, like a shield or something that could save you. Range has the same issue where you can't use a power while shooting, but it is so much worse than melee. There's so little power to it, there's not even a running charge attack. You can sprint up, stop, then swing. It's ironically better not playing a close combat build. You're likely to have already wounded them from range, so when they get that close up, you just smack them and they die, which is the one way to make it satisfying here.
What's this big one? Oh, that's a big one. Robotic.
This is the Enhanced Edition. What the hell was it like before? Oh yeah, that's right, Enhanced Edition added suicide bomber enemies. Don't play melee. Oh right, did I mention that ranged weapons can jam? At random. So here's what I think happened. This is a game where you could be 4 lanes of fist. Why is everything so off? I've thought a lot about this, and I think I understand what they were doing. I said I wouldn't talk about the board game much, but I will talk about the video game adaptation of the board game, which you can't buy anymore, which is a shame. The original Space Hulk is a tactical squad game. You fight gene stealers in cramped hallways, and the restriction is the challenge of the game. Terminators can't shoot past each other, but gene stealers melt. At the same time, they'll rip your Terminators apart in melee, and fast. So it's all about keeping range and good positioning. Also smashing through or sealing off doors and clever use of choke points. You might have to take actions to fix a weapon jam or another unforeseen disaster. Sound familiar? They didn't just say, let's make a Space Hulk themed FPS. No. Let's convert the tabletop rule set for Space Hulk into an FPS. This is the exact kind of experimental, weird idea I'd expect from the people who made EYE. But EYE wasn't about shooting 4-armed monsters with a big gun in a hallway over and over. Okay, it was partially about that, I admit it, but it's not a restricting game. Levels are more open with verticality and you can move all over. There's a huge amount of powers and weapons to choose from. EYE is jank city, but it can be a blast. Deathwing is so restricted, and by design. I guess they successfully converted the board game. As it turns out, the result isn't very fun. Imagine if someone did that to, say, XCOM. Your gun's shots will randomly miss way off course. Sometimes your character panics and runs off to the side or does something out of your control. It would be like that. However, it's possible that this formula still could work, but the game is so clunky that I can't tell. I've only mentioned it a bit up until now, but there are so many bugs. So many times a screen was stuck for a while or a squad mate got stuck on something. One time I loaded a mission then instantly won. Again, this is the Enhanced Edition. I have no clue how bad things were before. There are flashes of cool gameplay, but everything else is so clunky and unpolished that it weighs it all down. I knew things were bad when I was looking around at the levels and going, wow, this would be great if it was a different game. Maybe an ARPG like Hellgate London, but less of an MMO? The multiplayer stuff has a ton of customization stuff in it. The bayonet there doesn't even do anything. Okay, so how about the campaign specifically and the story for that? There looked to be something going on there.
We have to quickly destroy the Archaeotech engine.
Nothing can be done hastily and prudently, Brother Barrakiel.
So answers an apothecary.
The story is so nothing. Space Marine is a Scorsese movie compared to this. The story doesn't respect your time, so I'm gonna gloss over it. You shoot gene stealers, they want to get the chapter's gene seed, but they don't. That's it. The worst part is they have these surreal vision sequences that hint that something more is going on. There were only 2 or 3, but then they stopped because the Tyranids want the gene seed. I actually thought it was a drop plot point because the reveal was so mundane I didn't know it was a reveal. You can play the campaign in multiplayer, but there are missing cutscenes and story elements because it doesn't matter. The final cutscene is a minute-long explosion with nothing else. Not even a voiceover or text box, you just watch an explosion. Honestly, I wouldn't care about it that much, but they pad out the campaign. There are 9 missions, but the last 2 are the same maps. They don't even bother to move the relics around, so you find new relics in the same spot. Well, it's not all the same. They do spice up Mission 8 in a very different way. An escort mission. It's so slow. Remember when I said how big the maps are? This guy goes the long way around. Cover the cat while it hacks this door. Again and again. Please hack it. Come on, you're here, hack it. Oh my god. It's been a while since I've seen a game with padding this blatant. If this mission was cut entirely, the game would be better for it. The final mission is another reused map. The objectives are far apart from each other and timed. When you get to the goals, they spice things up by spawning big nasty monsters on them. It's not as terrible as Mission 8, but it adds nothing except to my misery. I won't think about that anymore, but I will touch on the campaign's mechanics just a little bit. I might as well since some of it does feed into the multiplayer. One aspect of combat is that you never run out of ammo, you just gotta reload sometimes. Healing is another story, as in the campaign you have to rely on your apothecary squad mate. He only has a limited number of healing charges. However, you have a limited ability called a Cygate. This lets you teleport home, automatically heals you up, refreshes your squad's healing charges, and lets you rearm. It also takes roughly 10 seconds to launch, so if you slam it in a panic situation, it's likely already too late. Not the most abusable of escape plans. This gives an opportunity to rethink your plan and switch out weapons throughout the level, which is cool for you, but your squad will be limited. For one, their weapon variety is extremely restricted compared to your own. It's also locked off by skills. The most you can earn is 4 points after a mission, and you'll never max out the whole thing in a single playthrough. The bars between the skills do nothing, you just have to put points in them to get to the next skill, so more padding. But there are skills like squad mate can now equip a plasma cannon. 10% extra armor for allies. Allies can now use a thunder hammer. Put points in to reduce hacking time or the ultimate skill. For your bravery and fervor, a holy relic which makes your weapons immune to jamming. The only real game changers here are the new psychic powers you can unlock. Some of the squad weapons stuff is baffling, because if you equip your medic with anything outside the default loadout, they can't heal you anymore. You will not survive the death march without a healer. Your chances are better in multiplayer, but you should really have a healer there too. That means you have a line of progression, which actually means regression if you use the skill in it. Compared to banishing people to the Shadow Realm or using the Prince of Egypt Fire Tornado, I don't see the point. The system seems like a clunky afterthought for the single player. Luckily, in the Enhanced Edition, multiplayer is very expanded. Each class has several different powers to play off your strength. Whether it's a melee frenzy or summoning a skull probe, there are a lot more options here. The Librarian is also around, but he just doesn't have all the big powers you have in single player. Cosmetically and mechanically, there's a ridiculous amount of stuff to customize. All the upgrades of a model and the character, it's promising. The single and multiplayer special missions actually work identically to how it does in EYE. You pick a map or a playlist to load your group into, and it chooses objectives randomly. So in theory, this should be highly replayable. However, remember how bad I said the bugs were in single player? Those were nothing compared to the multiplayer.
Baby's first Unity game.
Is he, like, charging up something? Or
No, he's just... Oh, he's dead.
they're behind you.
What do you mean behind me? I haven't spawned in yet.
Oh, it is weird because you spawned in front of me and you're just standing still and being killed.
Brother, I am pinned here!
Don't use the proximity mines, I've had them stuck forever before. Try playing the game when you can't shoot. Yeah, I'm stuck teleporting in again. I don't think this is happening. Despite the clunky combat and everything else, there's still fun to be had in multiplayer. But it's still horribly, horribly unpolished and buggy. Game breaking and crashing bugs. I checked multiple times in settings and I never saw more than 2 games going. Usually it'd be empty. After all I've played and seen, that checks out. If you want to play a game like this with friends, you could play Deep Rock Galactic or a ton of others. When you level up and gain a random item, it's so uninspired, like, here, range damage boost 10, which increases range damage by 10%. It's so uninspired and boring. You play on the same 8 maps doing the same thing. A few enemies might have a different reskin, but that's it. There are enemy recolors, but exclusive to a Twitch integration voting system. I can't describe how much that blows my mind. Such a simple parameter to add a little bit more variety, and it's locked into Twitch. I'm gonna end things here before I go crazy. Second only to Fire Warrior, this is the most frustrating 40k game I've ever played. It's not the worst by far, it's just so agonizingly, tauntingly close to being good. The polish is so bad that I can't tell if the concepts would work. The art direction and environments are amazing, but that's what you're getting the game for. Everything else is way too scuffed. It's not deep enough to be a good tactical game, and the combat is too clumsy and you're too vulnerable for it to be a good power fantasy game. It should be about $7 on GOG by the time this video goes up, but I'm not even sure that's worth it. Every other Warhammer game is on sale there. In fact, every game should be because it's the winter sale. I still want to see more from this studio, whether it's another 40k game or an EYE game or something new, because they do have interesting ideas. This game feels too restricting for what I know they can do. I would love a surreal 40k game from them. Do the weird parts of the Astartes short, because ultimately I think Space Hulk works better in its original intended form. An overhead tactical game. Still, next time we'll see what these ships were like when they were functional. See you next time. Live Moss. Considering there's a Warhammer marathon, will I cover some of the older games? It won't really be a marathon this time. I plan for one after this one, and then I'll wait for Darktide. I have Mark of Chaos in mind for around then, but I'm really realizing how many horrible Warhammer games there are. I'll wait until things have calmed down in my life until I subject myself to them again. Which game company do I think has fallen farthest from grace? I'm gonna say BioWare, and far before Mass Effect Andromeda or Anthem or anything like that. I'd guess the most popular answer for that would be Blizzard, but I didn't get into their games that much besides Diablo 2 and Warcraft 3. So I didn't get to see that rot away firsthand. Any plans for a Phantom Pain video this coming year? Maybe, because I do want to do some longer games in 2021. A Kingdom and a Kingmaker, some Decadence, and Adam in there maybe. With Phantom Pain I need to figure out how to back up my save properly because I don't even want to say what my staff levels were at. I played a lot of FOB missions. I honestly wish that more games had that build up a base thing in the background going on, but most of the ones I've played are very surface level, including Phantom Pain, but that's all for now.
Brambremstiftig!